Again, we're so glad that you're here this morning. If I get this thing working. We're so glad you're here this morning. We appreciate you being here. We got several visitors in our midst. We want you to know you're our honored guest. We want you to come back any opportunity that you have. We are so excited that you're here. Be sure to visit our visitor center, our guest central, so that we fill out a little card there. We've got a little gift for you. We would love for you to come back any chance. If you have anything that we can do for you, let us know. And if we can make your experience here any better, we certainly want to do that. Also want you to keep in mind that we have a group of about 8 or 9 that are going to camp today right after services. So keep them in your prayers this week. They'll be at Taylor Christian Camp in Kentucky through Friday. They're leaving out right after services today. And so that we're excited about that, having that group go. And then next week, I think what's the thing coming up for next week? What's that? Father's Day. Now, I was thinking of the other, but it's after Father's Day. You're right. I forgot next week is Father's Day. Want to make sure you come for Father's Day. Our ladies, we're not going to have Bible class next Sunday morning. Our ladies are going to prepare breakfast for the men. And, of course, everybody's invited. The whole family's invited. But they're making a man's breakfast. It's going to have biscuits and gravy and eggs and bacon and sausage and anything meat we could get, whatever, and it's going to be good. So and they're going to decorate in a theme, so we're just excited about that. That's next Sunday morning. I want to invite you to be here for that. If you're visiting with us this morning, make your plans to come back next week for that. You won't want to miss that as well. And then the kids are going to be going to Nashville to, is it Horizon? That's not, Impact. That's what I was trying to think of. Impact. That's coming up. Vacation Bible School is coming up. A lot of good things coming up. If you did not get the map of all the things going on, by the way, this week we had our first TNT for our junior TNT and our first senior TNT this week. Went fantastic. I understand that the lessons were great. They had a good time. Singing, they said, was fantastic. So many good things going on, and we need to be thinking about and grateful for and being a part of, and we need you to be a part of those things. One of the things we told you at the beginning of the year is we are going to, we always have, but we're going to emphasize a little better missions. We have a group that are getting ready to go to Honduras the end of this month. Be praying about them. That's what that table is set up out in the foyer. And y'all are doing a fantastic job of bringing things for that. I think the thing that they said they needed the most of right now was flip-flops, cheap flip-flops. Be sure to get some of those and bring them and other things. Be praying for the group that is going. We have a good group that's going. This morning, in the same theme of putting emphasis on missions, is we're going to give a report get a report from our group that went to Liberia. And we're excited about that. We've got a good group that went to that, and they came back fired up. And they would like to share some of what got them excited for you, because you were a part of this work as much as they were. And this is a part of the work here at Line Area. You need to be knowing what you're doing and getting excited about that. We have some other things we're going to tell you at the end of services today about missions and things. I'm telling you, we're taking this thing serious. We want you to be serious about this. Not only foreign missions, but local missions. And we want to be a church that reaches out. And so I'm so thankful for the group that went to Liberia and what they have done. And Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you. You're fixing to come up here and take control over this and tell him right down. He's going to do it from down there.
Good morning. I want to start off with a prayer. Our Heavenly Father, Lord, I just ask you to be with me and be with our group as we present to the church here, and just help us to be able to take what is on our heart and be able to properly share that with the congregation here. We just ask that you to bless this time together. We are truly blessed just to have this opportunity. And we thank you. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Liberia, it's a great place, and we hope we can really do a great job of sharing this with you today. First of all, I want to introduce the team, what became our team going to Liberia. And I don't have the clicker. Do I? Am I supposed to have a clicker? Okay. Next slide, please. We'll just go with the next, sorry. As far as I'm going to ask the ladies to stand, we have Dr. Kim Johnson. We have Margie Hicks, Crystal Welch, and Julie Shanks. So those are so y'all can go ahead and have a seat. And you can see in the picture that there are others. We had a group from Illinois that met up with us. And we did this in concert with CERT International. And CERT stands for Christian Emergency Relief Teams. And what they do is they put together mainly medical mission trips, and they do this all over the world, but they really know what they're doing as far as it comes to medical missions. And they were able to pull the people from Illinois together, and you'll hear more about them later, but this is a group from Illinois, and there were, 3 doctors and 3 nurses or thereabouts, 2 nurses, I guess. And also, the good thing about CERT, we had Michelle White, CERT is a local company, and Michelle White was our contact here, and she did a great job of organizing the trip, and actually in getting us ready for this trip, we had a book that we read, which I know the Honduras group will be doing also. I learned a lot from that. I've been on many, many mission trips, but I was amazed at what I learned how to properly do some things, so you continue to learn. The next slide. This will just show you where Liberia is. It's at the very bottom of that picture in West Africa. It's green. You'll see Ivory Coast is fairly large, so sort of in the middle bottom, that's where you'll see Liberia. It's not a very large country, but anyway, I wanted you to know where it is. The mission, what is the mission of our trip? And by the way, I could easily do this program for you without this. But this gets us out at 11 o'clock. Just want you to know. If we don't, it'll be 11:30. So, but what was our mission? The mission was to bring Jesus to these villages through medical clinics. And that's what to remember. We're not going there to necessarily heal people, even though there is some of that's done. But we're really going to bring Jesus, and we do that by strengthening the local churches. CERT always works with a local church. They're non-denominational. In this case, we were working with Churches of Christ, and so we worked with 5 different Churches of Christ while we were on our trip. In Matthew 25:40, this is just a scripture verse that I wanted to share. Whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. But I really love what Aaron just read from John. I think even more, it ended, love each other. And that's really all we're doing, to love each other. Love here, loving there. And I think one of the reasons that I'm really drawn in doing missions is the people are so receptive. They're looking for help. They're looking for Jesus. They're looking for things that help make their church stronger and helps them to go out to others and helps to grow the church. And I've got lots of examples I would love to share with you of over my years of how effective that is. But by putting a well in a village that has a Teku Church of Christ on it, it's amazing what it does for that church. Just by doing that. When at first they didn't care really, they weren't that big about having a well. And this is going back to Ghana, but it's a big thing. I also wanted to mention that Mike and Peggy Yarborough were missionaries in Liberia many years ago, and I think before Civil War, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But I think, and I've always wanted to talk to them more about that. But we've got people in our. Did I say that wrong? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyway, please correct me. I am on some medication, so it's fine to correct me. Okay, go to the next slide. Here is a picture of one of the first villages we came into. The 4 of the villages we went to look very similar. This is sort of what they look like. In the distance, you can see these are made with mud. These buildings are made with mud blocks. They make their own blocks, and they're made with clay and straw, and that's typically what they look like. You look at these kids; these are kids that they're going to school. They have really nice uniforms, but if you look really close at their uniforms, you might see that there's no telling how old they are, how patched up they are, because they don't throw anything away in Liberia. I think the gentleman in the front, is the preacher there at that church. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure. Next slide, please. Now, here's a picture of where we did one of our clinics, and we'll be talking more about that in a minute. But notice the flag that's sitting in front of the clinic. Here we are in Liberia. Can anybody tell what kind of flag is that? Looks like a U.S. flag, correct? Yeah, it looks like a U.S. flag. Next slide. Liberian flag. That is the Liberian flag. And so when I was there last year and I saw in the streets, I saw somebody selling a flag, and I'm like, wow, they're selling a U.S. flag. No, it's a Liberian flag. And I want to just share with you just quickly a little history about Liberia, just a very short history. The country of Liberia is approximately the size of Tennessee, with a population about half of Tennessee, 4.7 million. English is their official language. However, it's sort of a Louisiana type. It's hard to understand until you've been there about 3 or 4 days. Then you start picking up on it because it's with such a dialect. They don't understand us either very well, but they do speak English. And the capital city is Monrovia, which is named after our 5th president, James Monroe. Starting in 1822, there was an organization in the United States that helped to send free and free-born African Americans back to relocate to Africa in 1822. This is before the Civil War, because they didn't feel like they really had a good opportunity in the United States. Even though they're free, are they really free in the United States in 1822? And they did this up until 1861, sending them back, these that wanted to go back to Africa. And by doing this, there was these settlers that went back, their relations escalated over centuries, where they had issues with the indigenous population. You had the natives, and then you had the people that came back. And one thing that's very shocking to me, when I see the people in Liberia, they're lighter skinned than most Africans. Blows me away. But that comes back because they were in the United States. And it's just amazing, but it still carries through the day. They are lighter skinned blacks than what you have, than what typically Ghana and all the other countries are. There was a civil war from 1980 till 2003. During that time, 8% of the population perished. 8%. They lost 8% of their population during that. Also, in 2014, they had the Ebola crisis. They lost 5,000 people. And that's where it really all started. That was the center point for Ebola. And actually, Line Area actually helped a little bit with the congregation there. As I said, 5,000 people died. Bottom line is, from the history, Liberia has had a rough time. They're the 5th poorest country in the world, and they've had a tough time. But I will say this. In my 2 different times to be to Liberia, I am not asked for money. They do not come around asking me for money. They want to do things on their own. I'm very impressed with the people there. Next slide. Here's the outside of one of the churches, which also was a clinic that day. So you can just sort of see, you see these mud blocks. If they really had money, they would put stucco on the outside of those, and then it lasts a lot longer. But this is sort of, just a quick picture of the outside of one of the churches that we went to out in the village. And then the next picture, this is the inside. You can see it's a dirt floor, but this is their church. We converted this over into the clinic for that day. Back in the far left is probably the pharmacy. You've got the doctors over in one section. You're just sort of all over the place, and you got people waiting inside. Next picture. All I'll say about this is this. When you go to outside the United States and you need to go to use the bathroom, don't say, "Where is the bathroom?" Because they will send you to the bathroom. You need to say, if you need to use the bathroom, you need to say, "Where is the toilet?" So that's all I'll tell you about that. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm going to fall over. There's a good story about this, so I'll let you ask the girls about that. We do not have time for that. That's why that's up there. Okay, next slide. I'd like to ask Miss Kim Johnson to please come up here, and I'm going to let her share with you about surgery. And we've got 3 slides that we're going to look at that you can share.
This is a picture of Dr. Allison Tank. She is a general surgeon and practices outside of Chicago. And she had surgery every single day. The first patient she saw on the first day, she amputated his finger. It needed to come off. It was gangrene. She took off masses off of people. She took care of sebaceous cysts. She took care of things that I thought, what in the world are you doing? But there was really no choice to help these people, because I would have never done that in the office myself. But she was a great help. I assisted her a lot, being in the surgical field myself, and that helped her quite a bit. And the people were very appreciative, and they are tough. I mean, there are some things that you cannot get numb, and you know that hurt, and they did not flinch. I mean, these people, they have a rough life. They're used to pain. They are tough, and they were so appreciative of having these lesions and these ailments that they had taken care of. That's just me. That wasn't a surgery patient. That was one of our clinic patients that we were talking with, and that is a Cowboy. He was our driver. Interesting story. When you have a chance, talk to us, and we'll tell you about Cowboy. He's a neat guy. He was a lot of help,
to say the least. Margie, I'll ask you to come up. I'm going to have, and just to share just a little bit about the guy that we call Cowboy. His name was Orbit. He could handle. It was amazing what that guy did. He was a savior for us as far as crowd control. When you're coming into a village and you have 500 people waiting to see you, and we had 4 doctors, 3 or 4 nurses, and you have 500 people, that guy can control them. He is an amazing individual. So, next slide. Margie, share with us about pharmacy.
Well, just so y'all know, according to Kim Johnson, I'm a pharmacist now, so I can put that on my resume. Pharmacy, me, Julie, Crystal helped some, but Julie and I were in pharmacy from the first day, and it was absolutely crazy. We had the language barrier, and trying to explain to them when to take the medicine, who it was for. Probably the most touching, though, to start with, we gave everyone worm medication, and when you would hand the pill to them, they would open their mouth.
That's the next slide, yeah.
Yeah. So to me, they were so trusting. We could have been giving them anything, but we had this pill in our hand, and we would place it in their mouth. So, I mean, that I wanted to share this picture just because they were just so trusting. It just amazed me. And of course, they knew that we were there to help them as well. So,
thank you. Crystal, please come up. And I'd also like to mention with that previous picture, you looking at, that was actually in a church building on Friday. That was the only one that was really a nice building. The rest of them, so I probably didn't have the best one for that. But anyway, Crystal, we got a few pictures I want you to share. So the next 2 is with just tell us about this baby.
Okay, well, this was I believe this was the first clinic day.
It was.
And we had lots of people that we were seeing. And this mom came, and she had several little children with her, and she had this baby all bundled up and just wrapped really tightly, and it looked like maybe a 2 or 3 month old baby. But getting to know the mom, and we unwrapped that child, and the child was just burning up with a fever and just really, really sick baby. But the mom told me that she was a twin. Well, the twin was a toddler running around, a 2-year-old. This child up here is 2 years old. And so the other nurse and I carried her over to the pediatrician who was there, and he looked at her and checked her over, and I said, "What do you think's wrong with this baby?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "Really, all we can do is, give them some antibiotics and some Tylenol and pray, because, we don't know if that baby will make it or not." But that baby, just holding that baby was the most touching thing. I can't even begin to tell you.
Let's go to the next slide.
Okay. Oh, this is Joni. She's one of the other nurses from Chicago that was with us, and she was wonderful to work with. But we just had the privilege of holding these sweet babies and just loving on them.
And next, I will say Crystal was sort of known as a kid magnet. So,
well, it was amazing. Everywhere we went, there were children everywhere, and they just wanted to. I don't know if they had never seen a white person before or what, but they just wanted to touch you. And it was all the time they were just touching their skin, and every time they would shake your hand, they would look at their hand after they shook your hand. It was really just, I don't know, it was kind of an amazing thing. But these children were so incredibly trusting. And that's what kind of got to me, like Margie was saying. You would just hold out your hand and they would take your hand and hold your hand and go with you wherever. And it was, to me, for somebody to come up and take your hand, take the hand of somebody who looked completely different from them, that they had never seen before, that was just kind of an amazing thing. But the kids were just so incredibly loving.
I know you met a lady by the name of Comfort.
Yes.
That's on the next slide. Tell us about Comfort.
Okay. This is Comfort and her mother. Comfort's last name is Brown, and my maiden name is Brown. And we instantly kind of clicked. I'm normally not like that. I don't make friends that easily and that quickly, but we got to know each other on one of our 4-hour rides out to a clinic. And so we got to know each other really well, and she was telling me her story about how she and her family kind of escaped during the Civil War that they had there. Comfort was pregnant at the time of the war, and she and her mother, and that's her mother, and her father fled to the bush, which is the jungle area. And as we were traveling out to this remote village, she would point out, she said, we stayed there, and we stayed there. Oh, and we stayed there. And she was pointing to these mud huts along the way through the jungle. And she also, for the most part, they stayed under a tree at night. You know, they just had a blanket and slept under the tree out in the elements and everything. But her story, as we continued talking, she told us more about her story. That really touched me, and I'm going to try not to cry. But during her time in the bush, she was beaten, and she was raped, and she hid out in the jungle for 10 years. And that was how she survived. This woman did not have an ounce of bitterness. It was incredible. She was one of the most loving people I've ever met. And to hear what she had been through was overwhelming. And I don't even know how to explain how that was getting to know her. But we have been communicating back and forth. Yeah, thank you. We've been communicating back and forth. They do have, oh, thanks. Oh, it's okay. They do have cell phones. Cell phones are super cheap over there, not like Verizon here, but they're super cheap. So they can communicate. So we message back and forth just about every day. And she said, she told me, and this is a woman that has very, very little. She told me, she said, I've been fasting and I've been praying for you and your team as you share this with your church family, because you're her church family as well. And to me, that was overwhelming that she would do that for us. And I said, what would you like for your church family at Line Area to know? And she said, I want them to know that life is hard and we struggle. She said, from birth, we struggle. And her hope for her children is that they can go on to school. And her hope for herself, she's currently in a nursing assistant program, which is similar to what I teach at the high school. And so she's graduating from there. She wants to go on to nursing school, and she wants to become a nurse midwife because the women really struggle there. And she wants to help women there. But that's basically what she wanted you all to know about them. And the fact that they're on the other side of the world praying for us is amazing to me.
And here's another picture of her that with you. So
yeah,
anyway.
There we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Margie, come here, please. Next picture. Tell us about what this picture means to you. And by the way, this is one. I guess this is another one of Crystal's.
Crystal's followers. They were scared of me and Julie, I think, because we were tall and so a lot of them cried. Thanks, Mitchell. I appreciate that. This is Esther. This is one that Crystal met, and Crystal got to know these people by name. It was interesting. She mentioned that that's not normally her style. I, on the other hand, as y'all know, am in your face, but I was not over there. I was basically stepping back and wasn't sure. But Crystal also got to ride with some of these people as we traveled to the villages, so she got to know them a little bit better. But what I shared the other night with the group about Esther and about all the children was when I was there, I did not see color. I saw people who needed help, and they were just the most trusting, accepting, believing people. And I shared with Crystal on the flight back that I thought I would have an aha moment, and I didn't. I was very disappointed. But the aha moment is when we were talking about all the people that we met and how they reacted to us. And we as Christians should be that way with each other, with everyone. So, sweet little Esther.
Thank you. Next slide. Travel there was difficult. I'm not going to go into, but we were 3 and 4 hours or longer sometimes getting to different places. Here's where we may have been stuck one time. I'm not for sure because that happened a lot. Next slide. And then here's another picture of one of the roads. And then next slide. And then here's an example of a bridge that we're crossing. It doesn't look that bad from here, but I will say there were some of the bridges we were crossing on our last day, and I was questioning if we should cross them. But before I could say anything, off we were going across. And just so you know, when we did finally get to one village, and we really don't have time to tell that story, but except that we couldn't make it all the way to one village, so we had to stop and we had to set up on the side of the road, really to set our clinic up there, and we moved them back and forth. It was we could do a whole program just on that, but there were a lot of some of the folks were not as happy as others as far as can't believe where we have found ourselves. I will say that because our concern was will we be able to get back. But however, I had sweet Crystal coming, and she was in a different car from me, and I see Crystal smiling from ear to ear as always, and I said, Crystal, how are you doing? And we were at a spot that we couldn't go any further, and she just looks at me with a smile. She goes, this is better than Disney World. And she just loved every second of it. And even though we weren't sure we might be able to get out of there or not, you never know. Next slide. On the way back, this is what we ran into. A truck actually went through a bridge, way overloaded. And these are just things. I had this happen 2 years in a row. The year before, it was because our car broke down. This time, it's a truck in front of us. But we got back. Next slide. We had to commandeer motorcycles. And so here we are. We took motorcycles. We were able to get back on the motorcycles. At this time, I would like to ask Miss Kim to come up and to share with us her vision for the future, because I know she's already got a vision for herself, and I'd just like her to share that.
Julie, Crystal, and Margie and I have already gotten together and had dinner one night, and it was so nice that we were all on the same page, and we just kind of wanted to get together and talk. And the first thing, okay, we're going back. And what do we want to do different when we go back? And we already have plans. So not only do we want to help the preachers out with their medical needs in the congregation, but we want to give out clothes, we want to do tennis shoes, we want to do teaching. We've already looked into courses that we can take to help us with tropical medicine, to help us be able to diagnose things better. We're also looking into courses into public health. And so we're already making plans of going back. Julie doesn't know about some education things on her end too. We haven't told her yet. And the thing is we want to know these people, and we want to know them on a first name basis. So we want to be able to keep records on them, follow their children's growth, help them through school, anything that they need, because they are our brothers and sisters in Christ, and they do need some help. But the thing is, though, is they are very much do it themselves. We just need to assist them. We don't need to do it for them. They don't want us to do it for them. We just need to assist them. And so we're making plans to go back. We want you to go with us. We need more help. We need more helpers. Linary has already set up an account with Blessings International. That is where we can get our medicines. We can go directly through them now. We have other things planned, but like I said, we want you to go with us because we need the help, and you will not, I promise, you will not regret going with us.
Thank you. You can take that. You can take it. This is a picture of where we were this is where we went to church on Sunday after we first got there, and also this is where we did our clinic on Friday, the last day that we were there doing clinics. This is a fairly nice church building. This is the church we've been working with to do all these, going to these other villages. The minister there is Alfred Bayan and his wife Mina, which I don't even have a picture of them, and I can't believe that I don't. But I just share with you quickly how I came in touch with them because of continued some continued emailing and so forth. I met him in Ghana 5, 6, 7 years ago, and he just continued to keep in touch with me. And it's a neat story in itself, and how he wouldn't let that go, and how we stayed in touch. But he and his wife are amazing people. They are truly amazing at what they're doing, and what they're willing to give up. I'm going to show 4 pictures of the school they have there that's associated with this church. This is actually in the church building. During Monday through Friday, it turns into a school. And so this is the church building, and there it is where it's a school. Next page, or next slide. Yeah, here's the same. This is probably the day of the clinic. On the left side, we've got the doctors set up. In the left bottom corner, which you can't see, that's where pharmacy was. And then you had all the people waiting on the right. This was our last day, by far the most organized day, because we knew what we were doing by then. And but this was an incredibly organized day. Next slide. Here is the building that is next to the church building. It's to the right of the church building. It's sort of a makeshift school building is what they've put together. Next slide. And here is the back of the building. And then next, I think you'll see here's the inside. There's no electricity in there. It looks very dark. It is very dark. Next. And here's the other side of it. Altogether, there's 125 students that are going to this school, and I'm going to talk more about that here in just a second. Next slide. And here's another picture from that school. So these are all in that makeshift building that they currently have. Next. Now, Kim Johnson sent this to me. Just happened to see a picture of the house, of the Linary house in Ghana. And it just really brought it back to me. And in March of 2008, Linary had a campaign to build the house where these kids are at the Village of Hope in Ghana that took 24 impoverished orphans off the streets to live with house parents. Not only did this give these orphans a strong family unit, it took them off the streets and provided them access to a Christian education. They actually have a school right there on campus. There's about 8 houses or 10 houses, just like the Linary house. These kids are now graduating from high school. Many are going on to college. But remember, these are kids that were orphans. They probably don't even survive. So these kids, not only have they survived, they're now going to high school, which is a very small percentage even go to high school in Ghana. So I'm just using this as an example of what can happen, what we've done here at Linary. Most importantly, they have been raised to know the love of hope of Christ and are now showing the love of Christ to others. That just really, it was just sort of interesting that just to see that picture and think, that has been 11 years ago. That's when we did that. 24 kids are living in this house, but it changes over time as they graduate and they go out. When they start high school, they come out of the house. They now in the high school, and they actually live at the high school. Next slide, or is there a next slide? There's not. That's fine. Just leave it there. In closing, about 20 years ago, Linary was involved in starting. This is the part that's hard, and I'm sorry, but this is something I've been really working on for. And I wish I could share how this all came together. But schools. That's when I went to Ghana, and I decided I wasn't going to go back to Ghana. I was on my last trip to Ghana last year, and I went, and I found out, no, I'm going back to Ghana because I saw some things that were happening in Ghana. It just hit me how things are happening in Ghana. from this work that I've done. I thought I was sort of done with things I wanted to do there, but then I saw some of the fruits. And that's what I'm trying to share. I'm going to share with you. That's why I'm reading it. So about 20 years ago, Lionary was involved in starting a Christian school in Ateku, Ghana. That was back, Mike Ingram got me to go, and that was on our second trip, and that's where we started working and getting this school going. I've personally witnessed the transformation of a village in Ateku, largely in part to the effect of Christian education. I've got 2 kids. I can sit and tell you the story of these 2 kids, Monica and Samuel. My daughter knows Samuel very well. She went there. These are 2 kids that really stuck out to me. I remember when they were kids. They were street kids. Samuel didn't go to school. We tried to get him to go to school. He wouldn't go to school. Samuel's about to be a preacher. He's going to preacher school now. Monica is graduating high school, getting ready to start to college. Now, I don't follow the stories of all of these kids. I'm just telling you, I can see what's happening in this community, how it's changing. And so I left Ghana last year with this, wow, look what school's going. I go to Liberia and guess all what they want to talk to me about. They don't talk to me about building church buildings. They're not talking about supporting preachers. They're not talking to me even about medical missions. They need help with schools. That's all they're talking to me about. The previous slides of the Morning Star Christian School is the elementary school that currently is right beside the GSA Church of Christ, which I just shared with you. There's only one government school in Painesville. Painesville is a town, you never know you leave Monrovia to go to Painesville. It's just a suburb, but suburb's a little different in Africa. There's a lot of people that live there, that's what I'll say. It's a populated area. And Monrovia is the capital, is the capital, as I stated earlier. They currently have a structure, as you've seen in previous slides, but it's not up to standard according to the government regulations, and they have concerns that the school could be closed down. If this happens, the children will have no place to attend school, and their parents can't afford the high tuition in other schools, also in part due to the high unemployment rate and aftermath of Ebola, creating many orphans. This will leave the children with no education, nowhere to turn. Currently, this school that I showed you has 125 students enrolled from nursery through grade 6. Out of 125 total students, 50 are from the church, 75 are from the community that they're accepting. They receive requests from the community on a daily basis appealing to help children to attend on a scholarship structure, but they don't have room to hold more students, which they don't. The expenses to run the school minus the teacher's salaries, not including the teacher's salaries, the cost to run the school on a year is less than $1,000. That's what they're spending. Now, why are they only spending $1,000? I guess because that's all they have. And I looked at their expenses, it's mainly books. That's where their expenses are mainly going to as far as out of that. So for an entire year, and that's coming from the income they're receiving from the students that can't actually pay. The teachers are being here's a very key point. This is probably what got me to go into this work as far as in working with Alfred and Mina. The teachers were being supported single-handedly by Alfred and Mina Bayan, the preacher and his wife at GSA, which I did not have a picture of, which takes up over half of their monthly income. Okay. Well, somebody that makes a lot of money giving half their money away, maybe not that big a deal. He makes $100 a month as a preacher. He's supported by that church. She makes $900 a month. She works for a nonprofit out of Europe. She actually has a pretty good job over there. So they're making $1,000 a month. They were giving half of it to support this school, to get this school going because it was so important to them. When I went to Liberia last, and I did not find this out from them, by the way. This is a whole other story. This is found out from somebody in the United States that I got to meet up with, that we sort of put 2 and 2 together and figured some things out. Because we both thought they had support somewhere, and we found out they did not have any support. When I went to Liberia last year, I met with the teachers and members of the church, and they are desperately wanting to build a first-class Christian elementary school for which they now have plans and budgets. I feel like we have an opportunity at Lionary to actually raise the money to allow them to build this school. And this school, they assure me, can be self-sustaining. If they've got a school building, a nice school building, they can attract people, students, where they can be self-sustaining, where they don't need money for support. The current budget to build this school is $160,000. Now, I've got the plans. I've made them put together time frames and so forth, phases and all that, and really had them do a lot, and we've been working on this for a year. But the current budget to build that school is $160,000. If this is a project that you feel that the members of Linary want to support, please let us know. Now, I'll also say this. If you feel like this is a project that we shouldn't support, please let me know that also. We just want to try to do things. Maybe this is not the project for us. But we want impact, because this input, this would be a Linary project if we're going to do this. I just want to say that today has been a blessing, and I just really, I just can't tell you what a pleasure it was traveling with these ladies. I'll go anywhere with them. It has just been an honor to present this to you. I appreciate the time. It is, as you can tell, Liberia is on our heart. It's a special place for us. There's lots of other areas to work. There's areas right here in Crossville. It's all in where can we get involved? What can we do together? And remember, we just need to love each other. If we can help you in any way, we want to encourage you as we offer this invitation.